Hello and welcome to California Now. I'm Gleison Martin. And here next to me, the Executive Director of the GLBT Historical Society and the GLBT History Museum in San Francisco, Terry Bezwek. Thanks so much for coming in.
Thanks very much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Let's talk about the GLBT Historical Society. It was founded in 1985.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
So it was a different period from what we're living now. I mean, how was it? Do you have a sense of, you lived through that, you lived that a little bit, and can you share a little bit
Yes,
with
of
us?
course, yeah. I moved to San Francisco myself in 1981 and came here to study theater at San Francisco State University. I had a girlfriend at the time.
Wow.
And, and I had no idea that I was moving at the exact time when the first reports of a strange infection were reported in the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention's newsletter, and how much impact that would have on my life and, of course, all of our lives.
Yeah.
But I moved here and I finished school and I was doing theater and very active in community theater in San Francisco. But then I got involved in activism and I became kind of a street activist where we did street theater and we'd get arrested at the end of our little skits. And so there were precursor groups to ACT UP in San Francisco that I was involved in. But the Historical Society was forming around the same time, and there were some precursor organizations to the Historical Society as well. But there were a couple of our founders were collecting periodicals and written materials, publications from around the world, around the U.S. And in their living room, Willie Walker was probably our key founder, and he died several years later, but of AIDS. But many of the early collections on the founding of the organization included the belongings of people with AIDS who were dying, and in some cases their families didn't want their possessions and really didn't see any value in them, and so they were being thrown out. And we, our founders, were even involved in dumpster diving, is my understanding. That's the mythology. I don't know how much dumpster diving there actually was, but there apparently was some, where they had to retrieve some materials, and those are included in our archives now.
And the archives, it's in a different building in San Francisco. It's on Market Street, which is a different building from the museum.
That's right, yeah.
So, and there's some talks that you guys want to build a new building to put both together under the same roof?
Yes, we've come up against a number of problems. We recently moved this year our archives to a much larger space in the Central Market area of San Francisco, and it's open to researchers and anybody from the public by appointment. And so we have much more space, and we're collecting things. If you have things actually that you want to donate to the archives, yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe the tape of this interview, who knows. So we're excited about that, but our museum is small in the Castro. We're able to do a lot with it. We have about 15,000 visitors every year, and we have changing exhibits on an ongoing basis. But we're only able to do so much with that small space. We, as you know, are an extremely diverse community, both in terms of gender and sexuality, but also in terms of race, ethnicity, national origin, religion, political persuasions, and all the combinations thereof that you can imagine. And we're as diverse as the human race itself. And each of our subpopulations, our subcultures, has an identity, has a community of their own, and a history of their own. And so those histories, those stories need to be told, and I think it's very important to articulate those. Right now in the museum we have just 2 walls in the front of the museum that we rotate out every 6 to 8 weeks with new exhibits. Today we're taking down the Noche de Ambiente exhibit, and we're getting ready to put up the Summer of Love exhibit looking at the 50th anniversary of the Summer of Love from a queer perspective, because there were actually very gay origins to the Summer of Love Festival 50 years ago. And so there's that.
It's a lot.
Yeah, and then we have the bears exhibit on the other community wall. But you know, those are two walls.
Yeah, yeah. But also you have there's some pieces from Harvey Milk's collection. There's other collections as well, right? I think people are watching this video now. There's some like you did some like different editing videos, and it goes different images.
Yes. We have in our main gallery, we have, I think it's about 10 different permanent exhibits. And we do switch those out every year or two with different exhibits. But yeah, we have one on oral history where we have a number of rotating videotapes of oral histories from Asian Americans. And then we have an exhibit about neighborhoods in San Francisco, the different queer neighborhoods that we've had in San Francisco. And there's a slideshow that runs continually while we have artifacts from different neighborhoods displayed below that, and so on. And so there's about 10 or 12 different small exhibits. But you know, in a space this size for each community, when really we could fill the entire museum with Asian American history, transgender history. So that's why we're launching this campaign called Vision 2020, where we're trying to build our capacity so that we can be in a place where we can launch a full-fledged capital campaign and actually build a new museum that would do justice to our community's history.
Okay, well, let's talk more about that after this short break. We'll be right back.
Would you like to win a complete makeover? In order to participate, you must like Salon DNA San Francisco along with Attitude Show, both pages on Facebook, and share, and follow us on Instagram. So make sure to tell all your friends and family, and I will see the lucky winner soon at Salon DNA.
Welcome back to California Up Now. I'm Gleison Martins, and here next to me the ED from the GLBT Historical Society and GLBT History Museum in San Francisco, Terry. Thank you so much for being here. So you're talking about this new foundation, to build a new foundation for the history of the museum, and also to the archives, and put it the same together.
Yeah.
If someone is watching us, how can they participate in this effort?
Well, we have a website and a Facebook page. The website is glbthistory.org, and that's really the best place to hook in, especially if you don't live in San Francisco. But even if you do, you can go online on our website and check out all the different exhibits and museum events that we have. You can also access the archives through our website, and you can even search our archives with the search function, where you enter in a different term or a name or somebody that you're interested in researching, and some finding aids will pop up to show you what we have. Or at least a summary of what we have, and then you can make an appointment to come down and look at it. But the donations,
it's always welcome.
Yeah, they're always welcome. And so our Vision 2020 campaign is basically our long-term fundraising program right now. We're also interested in bequests. People donate to us for our archives, or their papers, or their memorabilia. And while they're doing that, they may also be writing out their will and thinking about where they want to leave their funding.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so our, although many of our community, and especially the gay male community, bisexual community, have passed on early, some of us are getting older and we're surviving, and as we get older, we have to think about where we want to leave our money. So that's another way that people can give without hurting them in the pocketbook right now.
Absolutely, and we just had the 32nd anniversary
Yes.
last week.
Yes.
How was the party?
Was sorry you weren't there.
I
We had a
know I missed
wonderful
that
party.
So yeah.
It's just around the corner. We had a really full house, and we had, I was really excited because we had such, as we often do at the museum, a very diverse crowd. It was just as diverse, I think, as San Francisco is, and so there was a lot of men, a lot of women, a lot of people of color, a lot of transgenders, and drag queens, and and everybody was having a really wonderful time. And we had a very loud music, and and so I was kind of a little bit strained trying to talk by the end.
Yeah.
There were some cute boys too, so I was entertained. Yeah.
Nice. That's always nice, right? So what amazes me on Castro in San Francisco, it's like when I moved, I'm from Brazil, and when I moved here in 2007, I had this sense of, especially when I came from a small town in Brazil. It's difficult to be gay. Anyway, I had a sense of the freedom.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think today is still an issue for someone to be gay? I mean, talking about the young generation, everything's out there. There's a lot of information. You just go to Google, and there's a lot out there. But do you think it's still an issue?
Well, when I talk to young people, I get the sense that it is still an issue, and it's an issue for everyone.
Yeah.
When you're young, I sort of feel like when you're growing up, when you're a kid, just becoming aware of your sexuality is an issue, regardless of what sexuality you're going to end up being. I mean, it's an issue, right?
Yeah.
Puberty is not easy.
No.
But we still have a stigma attached to being gay, and we have a stigma attached certainly to being transgender, and the full spectrum that you have of sexual orientation and of gender expression are things that we learn about ourselves in real time.
Yeah.
And our families learn about them as well, and our communities. And so sometimes we get a little bit complacent, I think, here in San Francisco. But even in San Francisco, in a family, where a kid is growing up and they discover that they're not conforming in some way.
Yeah. It's amazing, even in San Francisco.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And so I think that there's a need for online resources, certainly, but there's also a need for physical places where people can go. And I was just meeting today with one of my colleagues to plan a curriculum for the public school system here in San Francisco, so that we can take exhibits and lectures into the classroom.
That'd be wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important because the suicide rate is still the highest for young kids if they're LGBT. And the alcoholism and drug abuse rate is still very high, and I think there's a reason for those things, and it's because we still haven't achieved acceptance, even if we achieve equality in the law in some areas. And I think it's important that kids are offered the opportunity to learn that they're part of a culture, they're part of a heritage, that there's a history behind them, and that people have paved the way ahead of them, and I think that makes it a little bit easier.
Yeah, I hope so. I truly do. So on March 28th, you guys have I was checking the website. There's a bunch of events coming up. So can you tell me the March 28th? There's an event coming up?
Sure, yeah, it's the March 28th event is part of a new series that we're doing on a monthly basis called Fighting Back. And Fighting Back was conceived in part as a result of the new political situation that we're experiencing here in this country with the Trump administration, and that we need to be part of the resistance, I think, and that we need to make the LGBTQ participation in that resistance rooted in our history and informed about where we came from, so that we can have a better idea where we're going. And so, the first one on the March 28th is going to deal with the 30th anniversary of the founding of ACT UP in New York, And in San Francisco, we had similar groups that were already forming. I was a part of them, actually. The AIDS Action Pledge was forming at the same time. Later became ACT UP in San Francisco. And so we're, with the Fighting Back series, we're trying to look at contemporary issues in a historical context. And so we're going to look at what are contemporary direct action protest movements here, like Black Lives Matter, the Standing Rock protests, you know, the housing protests and that kind of thing, and juxtaposed with our 30 years of experience doing direct action work against AIDS.
One more time for someone who's watching us, wants to donate, what is the website again?
The website is www.glbthistory.org.
Thank you so much, Derek, for being here with me today.
Thank you, my pleasure.
And thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.
Hello and welcome to News Up Now. I'm Brian Thompson, and we begin this edition with President Donald Trump and House Speaker Paul Ryan. They have been lobbying members of the conservative House Freedom Caucus and also moderate Republicans in an attempt to reach 216 votes they need to pass the health bill. According to CNN's ongoing whip count, 26 House Republicans have said they will vote against the bill, and 4 more have indicated they are likely to oppose it. Though negotiations were ongoing today, and tomorrow the House hopes to vote on legislation to repeal and replace Obamacare. Now in London, police now know the identity of the terrorist who killed 3 people last Wednesday, the deadliest terror attack to hit the UK in 12 years. His name is Khalid Massoud. An American man and a British woman of Spanish origin were killed when Massoud rammed a rental car onto the sidewalk of Westminster Bridge. Massoud then stabbed an unarmed police officer as he stood guard at carriage gates, an entrance into a cobbled courtyard frequently used by members of parliament and staff. An ISIS-affiliated news agency claimed the attack last Wednesday. 29 people were taken to a hospital, 7 people remain critically ill, and 2 are in a life-threatening condition. Now, we are continuing in London, but with a different story. A designer has developed a face mask for children to protect them from city's toxic air. Stuart McDill reports.
6-year-old Yusuf now feels slightly safer on his walk to school. He's wearing a new face mask designed especially for children in London to protect him from the city's polluted air. His mother says the mask is the least he deserves.
Face mask is important because you want to prevent your children from taking these, their pollution into their lungs and affecting them. Especially like if my son maybe can develop asthma in the future, having me, I'm asthmatic. So anything to prevent from pollution and trying to reduce them having this bad air to their lungs definitely is any mom or any parent would do for their children. This is the minimum you can do.
The masks are the brainchild of Tian Trams, whose concern over London's poor air quality turned into a passion to try to protect young developing lungs.
As adults it affects us, but not as heavily as what it does children. And the main reason for that is because their lung development isn't to the point, where it's fully developed like an adult. So they are affected almost, I think, 60 or 70% worse. So I did a lot of research into cotton, the types of cotton, the intertwined cotton, different layers of cotton, and how many you really have to have together for it to do something. And the way my masks are made with the 2 separated layers of cotton and the way that the fabric is woven is actually scientifically proven to reduce between 40 to 60% of these particle intakes.
Air pollution kills nearly 9,500 Londoners every year, according to King's College London. Britain's High Court even ruling government measures to tackle the problem fail European Union rules on nitrogen dioxide limits. The response? A new £10 a day tax on older, dirtier vehicles coming into force later this year. Yusuf's message to the Prime Minister, a plea for cleaner air.
I should say we should stop everyone from throwing rubbish on the floor, and we get a lot of electric cars so they don't make that bad air pollution.
Back in the Bay Area, the ARC San Francisco is offering support and open path to adults with developmental disabilities. Here's Gleitson Martins with the story.
If you are walking on Castro Street, posing for a photo, you should check out the Castro Street Art Saves Lives Studio and Gallery. Today, students from the ARC San Francisco have some of their work on display.
And she's based off of myself because you can tell the head on top of the snake's body represents me. And the body of the snake represents my Chinese zodiac, the year of the snake, because I'm the year of the snake.
The program serves over 750 adults with Down's syndrome. 17 of them are showing their work at this gallery. For this arts director, the students get a new sense of identity.
We're working with a population that is often ostracized in our culture, looked down on, seen as less than fully human. So we're seeing that as our clients develop as artists, express themselves, have unique points of view, unique styles. As you can see, we have lots of red dots next to the work, so as they sell their work and are valued as artists, they get a whole new sense of themselves and sense of identity.
Paul has 3 paintings of himself as a drag queen. He was a little bit shy during our interview.
It's me. As Candy Delight.
After working in another gallery in the Mission District in San Francisco, Thomasina was offered this place, and it is open to all.
I like everybody to be in the space, disabled, all groups, and it works that way for everybody.
If you'd like to find out more about the ARC in San Francisco, visit thearcsf.com. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.